In this lesson, we are going to focus on nonfiction text structure. Now, even though this says nonfiction text structure, some of the fictional books that we read, we will come across some of the terms in which I'm going to share with you. Now, before I start, let me give you a brief overview of what a text structure is. Now, authors use nonfiction text structure to organize the text. This is helpful to allow readers to be able to see or understand how the text is organized. So let's begin. The first text structure I want to focus on is problem and solution. Now, this text structure is not only found in informational books, but it's also found in fiction books as well. What do I mean? The text structure includes information about the problem and possible attempted or solutions. Now, in the beginning of most of these texts, there's a problem proposed, and by the ending of the text, the problem is solved. There's a solution. This entire text is built up, or this entire plot is built up, where the author or the writer or the narrator is explaining the problem and the steps in which the author or the narrator or the characters in the books need to solve the problem. Now, in a problem and solution structure text, what you need to focus on is you're going to ask yourself, is this telling how the problem was solved? If you can successfully say yes, you've identified a text structure. Now, what's another text structure? Now, keep in mind, guys, we are learning about text structure. Another text structure would be none other than Mr. Cause and Effect. Now, the information from cause and effect, it shares information about an event and what caused it to occur. So in this case, you know that even though it was raining, if you left your umbrella, an effect of leaving your umbrella would be you're going to get wet in the rain, right? So because I left my umbrella, I got wet in the rain. Or because I left my lunch money, my friends shared lunch with me. The cause is you left your lunch money. The effect is someone gave you lunch. Now, here, you can ask yourself, is this explaining why something happened? If that's the case, chances are the structure of your text is cause and effect. Some other words that you can find in a cause and effect story, you're going to see the author using words like because, reason, therefore, as a result, since. You're going to even hear words like however, therefore. So, because I did not buy my books I needed for school, I ended up failing a test. This is also an example of cause. The cause is I didn't buy the book I needed. The effect is I failed a test. The cause is I didn't study for the test. The effective, I failed the test. So that's a cause and effect story for you. Next, we're going to have compare and contrast. Now, I know that when you compare something, you're talking about how they are the same. When you contrast something, you're talking about how they're different. Most times, person uses Venn diagram model here to tell cause and compare and contrast. The compare stays in the middle because it's what is common amongst both of them, and the contrast, they stay outside of the circle because it's what's different about them. Now that the text has two or more ideas or topics the author writes about and the similarities and their differences. Now, what are you asking yourself? You're asking yourself, is this explaining how things are alike or different? If your answer is yes, your text structure could possibly be a compare and contrast text. Now, when you're comparing and contrasting in a text, one of the most common words you're going to come across is going to be words like similar, both, also, different, however, whereas. These are just some common words that involve comparing how something is alike or different. Now, if I'm going to compare a lion to a tiger, I'm going to say they both belong to the cat family. I'm going to say the lion is more, I guess, rough than the tiger. I'm also going to say the lion is faster than a tiger. I'm going to say, they both are carnivores. They both like meat. So when you compare, you talk about how they're the same. When you contrast, you talk about how they're different. Now, sequence. What do I mean by sequence? Now, in a sequencing activity, sequencing simply means that something is done in order. So when you look at sequence, you talk about order. Now, the sequence of my life would be the day I was born, when I went to pre-K, when I went into kindergarten, when I went to elementary school, when I went to high school, when I went to college, when I graduated, and then I start working. That everything I just explained to you happened in a particular order. First, next, last. So when something is in sequential order, or the sequence, it says the text is written in order of events. Another word for sequential order is chronological order. Logical order. I want you guys to ask yourself, is this telling me the order of events? If it is, like using dates, so in the story you'll see they're using like different dates for different things, and then the dates are in order. Most likely you're looking at sequence. Or they're telling about before, then after, then finally. Or if they're telling about first, next, or last. Or if they're using 1, 2, 3, that is order. Order, sequential order, chronological order. That means this cannot happen before this. It goes this way. First, next, last. Before, after, finally. It uses dates from the oldest date up to the most modern date. Right? So, let's look at the last one, which is description. Now, in a description text, you're going to find that the author is going to give you detailed description of the topic. That means they're describing it. They are telling you what something looks like. They are telling you what something sounds like. They're telling you what something feels like, tastes like, smell like. When you're done reading, they're basically telling you all the details you need to use all of your senses. Now, ask yourself, is this text describing something? If that's what the majority of your text is doing, keep describing something, yeah, it's a description text. Now, what did we learn about today? Today we learned that there are 5 types of text structures. So we learned that there are 5 types of text structures. We also learned that we need to know them so that we can understand what we are reading. Now, we learned about description. We learned about sequencing. We learned about problem and solution. We learned about cause and effect. We learned also about compare and contrast. If you're able at the beginning of your text, or once you browse your text, figure out what structure your text is, your text structure, chances are when you're being asked a question, you'll know what to answer. Because if you know if it's a problem and solution, you're going to go back for the problem and check for the solution. If you know it was sequential or chronological, you're going to look at the events in order. You know if it's cause and effect, you know that one thing caused another thing to happen. You know if it's compare and contrast, you're talking about how are they the same and how are they different when you're analyzing them, right? If you know if it's description, you're talking about what it looks like. You're using your senses to work with it. Now, with that said, guys, I want you guys to take your time when you're reading your text so you can figure out all these wonderful things. And until next time, bye, guys.